Happening, folks. Director Alberto Corredor brings us today's movie, which I believe was supposed to be a supernatural horror movie. It stars Freya Allen and Jeremy Irvine and one of my favorite Scottish actors, Peter Mullen. I announced this movie was coming out on the channel about a year ago, and at the time there was a lot of hype around it, and now that it's out, everybody hates it. Me included. I tried really hard to treat this movie with the same respect I treat most movies, but I have completely failed. I wasn't even going to be in this video. I was going to do this brief little intro here like a voiceover, but then I thought I don't want to look like a coward for not looking you guys right in the eyes when I apologized. So the following is a straight up recap of the movie's plot, divided into 3 acts as usual. The recap will be full of sarcasm because this movie is... I apologize. This is Baghead.
The movie opens inside the Queen's Head pub and we meet its owner, Owen, played by Peter Mullen. The pub's run down and empty, that is until a fella named Neil wanders in from outside. He begs Owen to let him see her, without specifying who her is. He even offers Owen a thick envelope full of money, but Owen refuses and sends him on his way. Then he records a video to be viewed by whoever ends up taking ownership of the pub after he's gone. He says the property comes with a special tenant. She's attached to the building, and whenever the new owner's name is put onto the deed, they will become her new guardian. He warns the new owner never to let her out of the basement. Right when things are starting to feel nice and creepy for us in the audience, he renders everything he's just said in the video completely redundant by saying he's going to destroy the place now, so all of this ends immediately. This pre-title scene ends abruptly with Owen engulfed in CGI fire and a woman watching him burn through her $65 scleral contact lenses. We're only at the opening credits, and I'm already wondering why he hasn't just sold the place to somebody else already. Next up, we meet Iris and her friend Katie. They're sneaking back into the London apartment Iris was evicted from so she can grab a few of her personal belongings. A few seconds after she's officially turned homeless, her phone rings and she learns her father has died. And her father is Owen, the pub owner, which is obviously tragic, but also fantastically convenient. For the first time in modern history that I am aware of, Iris is asked to come in and identify the body, even though they'd normally use DNA or dental records when the deceased has expired in a fire. Then she meets the executor of her father's property. He's played by Ned Dennehy, and I thought he was absolutely savage as one of the cult hippies in Mandy. This will show you just how much of a difference the writing can make in a movie. He wants her to let him sell the place off on her behalf immediately, and his character is so one-dimensionally villainous. He's wearing a black trench coat, he speaks with an exaggerated rasp, and he's leapt into the frame to startle her twice in the first 30 seconds of meeting the poor girl. Who knows, maybe in the next scene they'll have him tied down to a set of train tracks. You know, so even the slowest of us will know he's not that good of a guy. She tells the dastardly solicitor she's gonna sleep in the place overnight, and in response he makes a dastardly face right before he leaves. When she speaks to her best pal Katie on the phone that night, she confides she can't get the image of her father's burnt body out of her head. Recognizing the highly traumatic event is causing her best friend to suffer, Katie digs down deep and passes on wisdom she must have obtained from one of Jordan Peterson's latest works. She tells Iris to stop thinking about it. And I'm willing to bet Iris feels pretty stupid for not having thought of that herself. Katie buys a ticket to fly over the next day, and that leaves Iris exploring the old building herself that night. And while she's exploring, young Neil from the opening scene comes back. He offers Iris the same envelope full of money in exchange for allowing him to go downstairs into the basement to speak to his wife. This scene's confusing, and normally it probably would have been rewritten before they'd filmed it, but given they've made Iris poor and homeless, she's obviously willing to go along with everything necessary to kick this story off. She tells him to come back tomorrow when she's got the key to downstairs, and she goes to let the solicitor know she'll be hanging on to the place for a while. She's handed the videotape her dad recorded at the start of the movie, and the first act comes to a close when Iris puts pen to paper, becoming the official new owner. The second act kicks off when Katie's taxi pulls in, and when she finds out Iris signed on as the new owner, she can't understand why. And when Iris says Neil is paying her thousands to come back and look down into the basement, she can't understand that either. Given Katie's her best friend, and she's apparently heading off to law school at some point, you'd have thought she'd have put two and two together pretty quickly. But I'm sure whoever Katie ends up representing legally in the future is going to be in capable hands, regardless of all this pesky common sense stuff getting in the way right now. Right on time, Neil, the amorous one, arrives with the remainder of the money, so Iris takes them all down into the basement with her newly acquired key. And as Iris is unlocking the door, you might be surprised to learn Katie didn't have to ask her what a key was. In the cavernous basement sits a wooden wide-back chair and an ominous hole in the brick wall. Neil calls into the hole and nothing happens. But when Iris does the same thing, we get to meet this movie's monster. The witch-type creature ignores Neil's requests and walks straight towards Iris. Despite seeing the mummified-looking woman materialize from the ether, the group reacts like it's just an old drunk man pestering them at a bar. When she invades Iris's personal space, Iris tells her to back up, which she does, immediately. And then Neil, the amorous one, narrates what just happened for us. You know, in case we all misinterpreted things. Or maybe he was explaining things for Katie's benefit. Iris agrees to tell her what to do as long as Neil agrees to double the money he's paying. Which of course he does. He's amorous, remember? So apparently this filthy witch possesses the ability to facilitate an actual conversation between you and a dead loved one. And at this point in the story, I have no problem saying the concept is a pretty freaking cool one. A lot of these films try to employ some sort of rules to distract you from the atrocious writing. And in Baghead, if you keep speaking to the dead loved one for longer than 120 seconds, things will turn nasty and the witch will take over. I tried locating the witch's stopwatch, but I suspect she's probably got some sort of digital readout high up on one of the walls. Once she's parked her butt in the chair, Neil tells the witch he wants to speak to his ex-wife, who passed away a year ago. To do this, the witch needs something personal to the deceased person, so he hands over her wedding ring. She swallows the ring, but evidently it belonged to his mother originally, so his mom shows up, and she died 20 years ago. And after the 120 seconds of her being completely confused about what's going on, naturally, the witch takes over and starts calling him a dick. After they've rolled around on the ground for a while, Iris tells her to stop, and she does stop. Then the witch spits out the ring. Neil pleads with Iris to let him try it again, and she says no because his wife is dead, even though we all just watched the witch bring back his dead mother. And then Neil tells her money is no object, and he offers thousands and thousands more to be able to come back. And if you're looking at this filthy abandoned building and wondering why penniless Iris is not selling it to Neil immediately before he changes his mind, just know you're not alone, because I'm wondering it too. And after the exchange, Iris heads right for the instructional video from her dad. And in a move even a wannabe amateur editor like myself wouldn't have pulled, they make us watch the entire video again. It contains all the same information it did the first time, of course, and so we in the audience just have to wait for it to finish the second time, which is kind of the opposite of what a filmmaker should be trying to accomplish. And while Iris is out visiting Neil at home for some reason, Katie sets an empty keg down right next to the basement door, and a framed picture falls off the wall, giving Katie all the backstory information she'll need to become the person who knows stuff later on. And back at Neil's place, they don't say anything to move the plot along at all, but Iris changes her mind anyways, and they all end up back down in the basement again. Only this time, Neil's brought something along that wasn't also accidentally his mother's. Once he starts the process up again, Iris stands by with a literal egg timer, and seeing her do that reminds me to remind you, I hate this movie. Neil removes the bag from the witch's head, and now you also know the creative efforts put into the titular monster's name. This time, as per his plan, he finds his dead wife there. And in a twist nobody could have possibly seen coming, he reveals he's actually trying to find out who she was cheating on him with. And nobody could have possibly seen that twist coming because the idea of spending tens of thousands of dollars to utilize the supernatural abilities of an elusive and dangerous witch just to ask his now dead wife who she was banging before she died is fucking ridiculous. Once again, for the first 120 seconds, his wife's very confused about what's happening, and after that time, she calls him a dick exactly like his mother did 15 minutes ago. Then Iris intervenes, and the witch does a CGI screamy face that's about as scary as Kyle Gallner. Then the witch retreats into her hole again, but not before glancing back over her shoulder for the 11th time in this second act. By this point in one of my normal reviews, I'd have superimposed myself into the film and started throwing punches at every single one of these useless characters. But that process is really time-consuming, so I'm going to crank up the sarcasm now instead. Please consider yourselves warned if you don't appreciate that sort of humor, my friends. I find it a very effective coping mechanism for these rare occasions when movies make me angry. We're shown a flashback scene, or a memory of a flashback. It's very hard to tell, knowing Owen and his wife are dead, but Iris is standing off to the side like Obi-Wan Kenobi. And then we watch that opening scene when Owen catches fire again, probably because a lot of the budget went into the fire effects and they want to get their money's worth. And then Iris draws a picture of the witch, or her dad, or her dead burnt dad, or maybe it's Chewbacca, to go stand beside her when she's in Obi-Wan Kenobi mode. And then she has a spooky dream because it's a terrible horror movie and you're supposed to have spooky dreams in terrible horror movies. And when she wakes up from the spooky dream, her necklace is strangling her. But would you believe her luck, Katie arrives at the exact second Iris needed her to cut the necklace off. And then also, because it's a shitty horror movie, the girls have to get into an argument. Neither character has any depth or substance to them though, so Iris just shouts at Katie about nothing until she leaves. And when she does leave, Katie heads to some random abandoned house in the middle of nowhere belonging to an old owner of the pub she found out about on the back of that picture frame earlier. I'm sure I could dig deeper into this to bring you more details, but I don't want to bring you more details when the ones we have already are so absolutely boring. Back in the pub, Iris revives her dad, and I would love to tell you something compelling or interesting happens during their 120 seconds, but I am bound by the laws of sincerity. He repeats what we know already, and she does the same. He also points out she's been trapped from the moment she signed the lease. Now, he could very easily have stopped this from ever happening with a simple clause forbidding her from taking ownership in the event of his demise, but nope. And after the time's up, he starts saying nasty things exactly like every other time, and even though everyone knows it's the witch saying the nasty things, they still let themselves get all upset by it. Katie comes back with a treasure chest full of paperwork. When she can't find Iris, because she's 15 feet away to the left sleeping in another room, she goes down into the basement. And the witch is there, funny enough, and she voluntarily eats a bit of paper belonging to the man Katie's been researching, even though that's not the way the process works according to the movie itself. So the man Katie's been researching shows up to tell Katie a big long story about the witch, and isn't that totally convenient? And then the witch beats her up. Then Iris wakes up, and even though she's never meant to go into the hole, she goes into the hole and she finds Katie. Only it's not Katie. And then Neil arrives. And it is Neil, but he puts Katie to sleep with a tablet. And he writes his name over Katie's name on the deed. But it doesn't work that way, Neil, you dumb fuck. And then Neil's dead wife shows up again, and I am going to have to figure out a way to type the rest of this script out with my fists all balled up in furious anger. You ready for this? Neil's wife died in a car accident because she wanted to leave Neil. And when she announced she was breaking up with him, he drugged her, the way he just drugged Iris. But his wife got into the car after he gave her the tablet and she crashed. You see, Neil didn't want her to leave him, the way his mother left him. And there might have been something interesting to this revelation if we'd figured it out for ourselves, but he actually says all of this shit out loud.
You were going to abandon me just like her, just like mother.
So he stands arguing with the ghost of his dead wife until he realizes Iris is listening, and then the second act comes to a close when he chases her all around the pub until she slips off the roof and dies. So he carries her body back inside and brings her back from the dead to ask her how to get his name onto the deed, even though there's literally nothing left to talk to his dead wife about. But the witch points out he just killed her guardian, but brought her back through her guardian, and that means the witch is her own guardian now. So she reminds Neil how much of a dick he is, and then she beats him to death, and then she leaves the basement. And that, my friends, brings an end to this piece of shit movie.
It's me, Jonny, from that video you just loved, and I know you loved it because this book I read told me if I constantly say that to you, you will start to believe it's true. So thanks for loving that video you just watched. You're also going to love this next video as soon as you click on it. Click on it.